Hello everybody. Welcome to season two of Entering the Creative Unknown. And I'm so happy to have artist Robin Puro with me today. And I'm super interested in hearing about her process, something that I don't really know a lot about. So I'm going to read her artist statement and then I'm going to bring it in. So Robin states, as a writer, kintsugi artist, potter, and painter, my work is informed by storytelling. I repair broken ceramics with gold for people who are marking a moment. It might be a birth or a death, anniversary or divorce, sobriety or disease. Often the story has moved through grief and landed on love. I make pottery in my home studio, and I often break my own pieces to repair with kintsugi. I also do custom repairs for special pieces that clients send to me. All kintsugi, I know we went over it, but I'm still
You're
going to
doing such a
mispronounce
good job.
it. Repairs use traditional methods and materials from Japan, including urushi oil,
Crucial. Yep.
urushi oil, clay, and powdered gold. You'd think I'd investigate this
We
ahead of
didn't we
time, but
didn't
even if
practice
I did, I wouldn't remember regardless.
we
So
didn't practice that one, so you can pass.
anyways, welcome to Entering the Creative Unknown. And before we start, I just have to state this out loud that I don't really know a lot about this art form. I've seen it quite a bit, and I've heard it as a metaphor used quite a bit. But I was really surprised when you sent me your the photos of your work, how emotional I became. I
Oh,
felt very emotional looking at these pieces. And I'd like you to just start by, first of all, just hello. And also just speaking a little bit. I mean, we read your artist statement, but speak a little bit about what you do and what it is.
sure. Hello. Thank you for having me. Um, I do many forms of art, but I am really particularly, like I said, moved by storytelling. And so Kintsugi as an art, um, well, in much in the Western world, when something breaks, whether it's a person or an object or a thing, we have a tendency to want to put it back together and make it perfect, perfect. And we want to make it look like it never broke, like it had never been broken, as if any of us could never break, right? But the I think one of the real beauties around and the emotional part behind kintsugi is that it's supposed to honor the break. So we don't hide the break. In fact, you highlight the break in the pottery so that people can see what actually happened to it. And then that's where the story is held. That break and the fact that it's highlighted by gold is also the thing that makes it truly unique. So we all have a past. I assume we all break, but kintsugi is an art that allows us to honor that past and all those things that happened to us that bring us to where we are and who we are today. So,
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you look at the pieces, which I'm going to put up in a moment, but there's a few different ways you can look at it. And I'm taking in what you just said in like how I'm thinking about looking at these pieces. In one way, it's a repair, right? It's also, there's an alchemy that's going on.
mm,
And also, it's a map.
it is. I often think of it as a constellation. And when I think about, I love stars, I love the night sky. And when I think about constellations, and there are these patterns and these lines that draw a thing together, and you might be able to pick out a whole from something that's much larger. And kintsugi, if you take a broken pot and you have just little bits of the story is very much in the lines. And sometimes it's a really emotional story, and sometimes it's not at all. It's strictly sentimentality, or sometimes it's just some people it's an absolute aesthetic. It's not even attached to anything bigger, but for some people, it's really pretty amazing how the repair might hold something far larger. I'm remembering a woman years ago who sent me a Starbucks mug, and I was like, you could probably buy three of these mugs for what you're paying to have it repaired with Kintsugi. And she was like, I know, but this is the mug that got me through medical school. And I was like, that's fair enough. So
Yeah,
It means something completely different, to the person.
right. Right. And she's out of medical school now,
She thought
which,
it got
right?
her through. According to her, she feels like she has an intention with that mug, and that mug is the mug that carried her through medical school. So I can imagine what it is to go through medical school and all the things that you're going to hold in that cup. But for her, it's a real trophy. Not a trophy like in the sense of trophy, but like it honors an entire journey of hers.
Yeah, and it's in these objects, they can be something so silly, or seemingly silly
Absolutely.
from the outside. And then, you have something like this could also be silly, but this is with me everywhere. You've been in relationship with this woman, and there's just something about it that, these things start to absorb our energy
Oh
and
yeah.
then begin to respond to us.
Yeah.
And when you get a piece, do you like, what is your body reaction when you first unfold a piece to repair?
It really depends. There is usually when someone's sending me something, I have some sense of what the story is. They'll often tell me when they're in contact, when they first reach out, they're like, I have this thing happened, and now I want to get it repaired. So often it arrives to me with some sort of emotional thing. Um, when it's attached to a story, especially if that story resonates with me, my experience when I'm working on the piece is really quite different. There are some people who are like, oh, it's just broken and I just want it fixed, but they don't have a particular attachment to it. I also feel that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like you're in active imagination with the pieces as you're putting them back together?
I do. I do. Again, it depends. They're so different. People send such different things, which is a story in itself, right? What we choose to bother to fix or repair versus what we might throw away. Um, but I'm thinking about this really wonderful wedding platter that someone had sent to me. They had gotten married, a big platter bowl type thing. Someone who I assume was, so now I'm assuming, so here's the active imagination, right? So now I'm putting the story together. Like someone who was at the wedding must have been a ceramic artist. They made this bowl for this couple. They painted sort of caricatures of the couple on this big platter, and then they had the dates of the wedding and the names of the people. So I have these sort of caricature visions of who these people are and maybe what they would have, but I have a sense of actually what they look like, which I don't get usually when I'm in the pieces, but I have this sort of cartoon sense. Someone bothered to make art with their likeness on them and put it onto their wedding platter. And so they were having it repaired because it smattered into like a billion pieces. And I just, stuff like that, I do have a very, like, I can picture them opening the thing and I can picture them having it on the mantle. The wedding had been a couple decades ago. So I know that this thing has traveled, I assume it's traveled with them for some amount of time and it's moved to maybe different mantles or different shelves or different whatever as they have gone through their lives. And then at some point, in a move or it hit the floor or the cat knocked it off. The cats, I tell you, the number of pieces I get from cats are like a thing. But so for them, the active imagination, there is a story there, but I also have a visual because I actually have their likeness there.
Well, and it's sort of like somebody, how I'm thinking of it, and this is just me going into my own active imagination, but I'm having this feeling of like repairing bones. And, if you were to have somebody that, I don't know, let's say you have a worker in your life or somebody that you see around that's like a builder, somebody that's part of your community that might be kind of invisible, and then
Hmm.
they fall down and they break something. and you have to spend a moment with them. You have to go get your first aid kit. And in that, there's a conversation that happens, and you get a little bit more intimate with this thing. And there's something about, I don't know, it was just as soon as I saw the photos, I just had this like, I can't really explain it, but a visceral response to like something broken that needs to be broken in order to be seen somehow.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to start putting up the pieces, and we're going to talk about the pieces, but I also just want to invite I want to make sure, and I didn't say this in the last season, but I think this is really important, that when I bring artists into these conversation, as you look at pieces that artists present, take a moment to feel into your system, like feel into your body. How are you responding to what's being shown? And let's see
So I have
here.
a question for you. When you are looking at
Yeah,
the pieces and you have that visceral response, where do you feel it in yourself?
I felt it like in most of them, I just felt like in my heart, just like in my body, like like it felt like a piece of me.
Yeah.
It was pretty deep actually. Okay, so let's see here. So we're going to start the slideshow. And I just wanted to start the slideshow with just a few pieces before we really get into the process. And, you know, as you go into the process, as we go through these initial pieces that aren't really showing your process, I want you to feel free to say anything about these pieces. So I'd like to just speak on this piece in particular, and if you could also talk on the memory of these pieces once they leave you.
Oh. Gosh,
It doesn't
just
have it doesn't
okay.
have to be on this piece. It can be
Okay,
on as we go through. Just keep that in your mind. Yeah.
great.
So when we're looking through these pieces, this piece right here, now I know zero about this art form, but to me this piece looks like, oh, this was an easy piece to repair.
It is a little deceiving because that flat part that is part of the bowl, one of the trickiest, it's in some ways it's easier to put together cracks than it is to fill in chips. And so that
Oh,
would be a chip, which is a very typical sort of break. You chip the edge of a piece of pottery on a table or a sink or whatever. And the materials that you have to use to make that chip blend in with the surface of the surrounding material is actually a lot more, it can be more difficult than repairing a clean break where two pieces come back together.
okay.
Yeah.
So you have to go through a sanding process, and
You have
it's
to go
like
through a sanding
you're
process.
building a crown, like making a
Ex-
crown for
Exactly,
somebody's.
you're building a crown, and what's tricky is that the materials that are used in traditional kintsugi are actually sort of toxic. They're not amazing to work with. And so one of those photos I sent to you was a collection of a number of different pieces. And it's because I gather everything together so that I can run everything through the process at one time because I have to suit up and protect myself. And it's poison ivy. Basically, you're working with an equivalent of poison ivy. And so that takes a certain amount of precautions to not inhale it, to not touch it. And so I suit up, do all the things I need to do for that step, and then let everything sit because everything has to sit for a number of weeks um, between steps.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me move through. Okay. So this would be more, and yeah, so what are the steps?
Well, you have your broken pieces and you have a substance that is the sap, which is the reactive substance, and it's called urushiol, and it comes from plants. It's very similar to poison oak or poison ivy. So it's like a sap. And so when it cures, it's really hard like a sap. But in its liquid form, it's kind of gooey, I guess. So you mix that substance with a binder. It's usually a flour. I mix it with a regular wheat flour and water to make a paste, and that's what the glue is. And so the glue binds those pieces together, and then that has to cure. And then the next steps would be mix that same material with a clay body. If you have any gaps you need to fill in, like I could see the bottom part of that teacup, that bigger section is probably a little chip that needed to be rebuilt. And so I take the clay body with that same material and I rebuild any little missing piece if I can. And then that cures. And then there's another form of that lacquer, which is bright red. It's a pure form of urushiol, and it gets painted along the crack. Once everything's sanded and clean, it gets painted along the crack, and that sits for a while. And then you take the gold dust, kind of like if you were grouting, you take it and you brush it across the painted sticky. It's really sticky. So you're painting it across the sticky substance. So it adheres to that, and then you let that dry, and then you clean that up.
Okay, so we have some photos of that, which we're going to get to later. I want to keep going through, but if I were to turn this teacup and look inside, would I see the gold veins on the inside as well?
You'd see it on the inside. That crack on the left, it's a partial. This cup, actually, I do have a story about this cup. I was in Japan many years ago and bought this. I fell in love with this set of teacups. There are five of them. On the inside, they're porcelain cups, and on the inside, they have these little village scenes painted on the inside.
Mm.
And they're the small teacups. And I had one that I had a little bit of whiskey in it, and I was in the shower. So I had it like on the thing, and then I was taking my shower, and it fell into the bottom of the tub and it cracked. That bottom crack was like a hairline fracture that doesn't actually break the piece off over there. That piece on the right had broken, but then so you can, if you were to look on the inside, you'd be able to see a crack kind of in half all the way through, and then this hairline fracture. That piece I actually wound up repairing and then sent to a friend as a gift.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. I mean, so right here, looking at this crack, so this is one of those things where I started to feel a little bit emotional about it. Like, this is a definite symbol right
Right?
here.
Yeah. I mean, it's either a pitchfork or a peace sign, depending on what, I mean, what do
Mhm.
you see? What do you see when you first see that?
I sort of see a peace sign, but
Hmm.
I also see like some kind of God
Oh, yeah.
figure.
Yeah.
So that's when it starts to make me feel like, is the incident, is the break that happens, is that the universe, giving you some kind of a symbol through this art form, knowing where the piece is going to land, or what, do you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you could do a reading once you put the pieces together.
And there are pieces that absolutely have like things you can't break. You never get to choose like people. We don't ever get to choose how we break. Life just occurs. And the same thing is with pottery, but it seems to be that however we do wind up breaking, it seems to be exactly how it needs to be. Um, this piece was really interesting, actually. It's a really antique sake cup. It's tiny. It is like an eggshell. It's so fragile put together because the pieces are so thin, but it was from a gentleman, I believe he was in California. And what was so neat about that is that I can imagine this piece being used in sake ceremonies because it is just so old and it is so delicate. But when you lift it up, if you're drinking from that side as you would be, so the image is upright right now, you'd be taking a sip, and on the back side there's this erotic painting of a woman reclining on something. I don't recall what it was reclining on. So the image on the underside, so when the person you're facing, when you're having sake with, I would drink the cup. And so I don't get to see the bottom of the cup, but you do get to see the bottom of my cup. So there's an exchange that's happening when two people are drinking from a sake set like this. that is without words also. And so when you're adding a break to it and you're adding kind of more information, or you're adding another story, I guess, with a wordless story, so to speak, it does change, it changes the whole, I guess it changes the whole piece. You know, I don't know. I didn't drink from it, but
Yeah, this is deep. I
but
really find this to be very deep. And when I've heard about this art before, it's always been like, well, turn something broken into something beautiful. It's so much more than that.
and it holds so much of the person who owns it at that time period. Clearly, this thing is far older than any of us, anyone who's been
Yeah.
around. So what are the stories that it's had along the way? I have no idea. I can only imagine, you know?
Well, and even thinking about that, what if, I mean, this is going to be a real woo-woo episode with how I'm going on this, but it's just, I can't help it. Like, this is what it's bringing up for me. It's also like, what if that is a ghost that's coming through that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like something that as an untold story that really needs to be revisited that lived in this cup and it's going to come out as this sign, this godlike sign or whatever you see. I mean, I definitely do see something. It's really like the image in the gold shape is really feels super archetypal to me. That's the response that I'm having. This is incredible. I'm so into this. Okay. Okay. If I have a favorite one that you sent me, it's this one on the left.
Oh, this platter,
It's incredible. So, can you talk a little bit about this? Looks pretty tedious, this one.
really tedious. I mean, tedious. I don't know. I don't know that I'd use I get how,
Intricate. Intricate?
yeah, um, yeah, intricate. It requires there's an attention. It demands a certain attention, right? Because I often get the pieces and then most of the time it's up to me to sort of, it's a puzzle. And I guess that's why I don't call it tedious because I do happen to really like puzzles.
Yeah.
Um, and there is some satisfaction in being able to put all the pieces together and be like, okay, this is it. And then there are often some, like in a piece like this, you'd get also a handful of fragments. You're like, I can't actually, there's a point where you can't, that stuff can just get rebuilt or filled in, that kind of thing. This one, the one on the left was this, I don't remember exactly she'd had it in her family since she was a child. Oh, it was her parents, I believe. And she was probably I would guess she was in her 60s or 70s. Her parents had lived in Japan, I think prior to her being born, actually, and had acquired this piece of pottery. It's a really large platter. It's about 2 feet across and 18 inches at least. And so it had been in her family for at least 2 generations. And she moved and it had broken in the move. And so things like this often wind up being display pieces, which I would recommend anyway for something like this, because if you were to use it in like regular food serving or whatever, it doesn't last as well as like a modern day repair. So she wound up putting it on like when actually she was semi-local and I drove it to her place and she had a little like a plate stand that she had it up on so it could be displayed that way. It looked great, I thought.
So when you have it look this looks incredible. So when you have a piece like this and I'm seeing veins that are going through with the gold and then I'm also seeing like bigger I'm going to call it a slop because I don't have a graceful word, but I
Sure.
see bigger splops of the gold. Now are those empty pieces that the chip couldn't be recovered or is this an artistic like choice?
It's where the chip wouldn't be able to be recovered. Or there's something, a fragment. You know, when we break a thing, it doesn't break and clean two clean places. Like you're to take anything and break it. Like there are little fragments and little things that come along the edge of it that will snap off and break off. And it's not a particularly even, it's not like glass, glass
Yeah.
clean snap. Pottery, the nature of clay is that it will fragment in different spaces. So you wind up with little spaces that are bigger, smaller, depending on how much how much of it breaks off in as it as it got damaged.
So the piece on the right, this is again, you have this spiral and there's a repair that needs to be done on it. And is it spiraling out or spiraling in? Like, is it the end of the spiral that got broken? Is it the beginning of the spiral that got broken? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, let me know. Let me know.
But a spiral, right? Is there a beginning and end to a spiral? I don't know. This piece was fascinating because it's carved. It's Maori and it's from New Zealand. It is carved from. They have a name for this type of art. It is carved from one piece of jade, which is really remarkable to me that it's carved from one piece of jade. So when it broke at those outer rings at the both the top, sort of at 12 and 6 o'clock, if you were to hold it up like a plate. It sat in that stand. And so when I picked up the piece, it's like two halves of a spiral. It's almost like this strange MC Escher sort of this experience of like removing a spiral from within a spiral
Mm-hmm.
and then putting it back together. So it did have it did have a full rim around the exterior containing the spiral. And I guess that's what you could consider, or where maybe it's where the spiral originates. I don't know. Um, Really extraordinary. Some of these pieces, getting to work on them and see things in such minute detail because I'm staring at a thing for so long, much longer than I might stare at someone's art in their house, for instance. But when I'm trying to put it together and line up all the things or rebuild little pieces, I sort of forget what the rest of the piece looks like.
Yeah.
There'll be a big platter painted with like fish or whatever. And I forget that there are even fish on there because I'm so focused on like this tiny, tiny little thing. But the spiral piece on the right is pretty, it's a pretty remarkable piece actually, just because the artwork itself, the original piece of artwork is so special. And she was really adamant about having it repaired because it was going to be part of her daughter's inheritance.
Oh, yeah. This feels to me like how I see this piece again. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm like projecting all of my own stuff all over everything today, but maybe it's interesting. I don't know. But I'm seeing this piece as like a family tree and
Oh,
like having these areas where something alchemized or healed. And I don't know. It's really beautiful.
yeah, it is definitely an ancestor piece, and it will be. Both of these pieces are actually, they're being carried along for multiple generations, and
And that just becomes more and more precious the more we just dispose of things, like having something that you bother to keep. I think about the things that I'm sure you have this experience too, that you're given something when you're too young to appreciate it.
hmm,
And something happens to it, and it's just like, whatever. And you just,
yeah,
some of the things that I reflect back on, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I just like tossed that thing.
yeah,
Oh, oh, these are some of my favorite pieces.
I
So I
love
know that
them.
yeah, they're so, and the piece on the right, I mean, of
Hmm.
both of these, but the piece on the right just feels like, again, it's like these are such symbolic images.
The one on the right, um, oh, you're in California, but you're in Southern California. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with Heath pottery?
No, maybe.
Near Sausalito, I'll say, just
Okay.
California. They've been around for several decades and decades, but they have their factory is in the Bay, is up there. And spent some time living in the Bay Area, but I have friends who are there who have a lot of this Heath pottery. And because Heath pottery is um, it is so elegant and it is so usable and it's so, the touch factor for it is just so, it's to me, that bowl is very family. Like that's the bowl you have your soup with your family around the table. That's the bowl that you serve a meal. Like it's a communal. To me, they're what I think is really lovely about Heath pottery is that it's so elegant and so simple that all the beauty, the food, whatever you're going to serve in there is kind of it's the perfect vessel for like sharing
Mm.
a meal. And I love the idea of sharing a meal. And so I am always particular to that particular
Do they have shops? And I feel like I've
They do have a
in
shop there.
Cambria,
They do
but
have
do
a
they have
shop in North Bay, so it's across the bridge. I think if my memory, unless they've moved, I think it's in Sausalito. But they have their whole
okay.
factory there. Everything there is slip cast. Most things there are slip cast, and so that you can take tours of the whole factory, and they have a store there. But they sell their stuff throughout the Bay Area and all kinds of wonderful shops, and you can buy it online. You can buy it there. Um,
East Pottery. Okay. So on the, I just want to ask a quick question about the teapots, and I know that. So you repaired the top. Did you
mhm.
also repair the mouth?
I did. Good eye. That lip at the snout, at the nose of the pottery, at the of the teapot.
Yeah.
That the lower part has a little chip on the spout.
Yeah.
So there's
Wow.
a repair there and then a repair on the lid itself.
So does the gold, well, I think we're going to get into, okay, so we're going to get into process pieces, but I want to ask one more quick question. How do you cure the gold? Like
Uh,
how do,
it's just time. It prefers an environment that is warm and humid. And so depending on I live in the desert and it can be cold and dry. I tend to not do, I will often shut down in the winter for that reason because the weather is not conducive to the weather where I live is not particularly conducive to Kintsugi pottery because I have to climate control my studio, which is actually really pretty tricky to do. But so it wants a certain amount of humidity and it wants a certain temperature. And then in an amount of time, it will cure 7 to 10 days or whatever, depending on the weather.
okay. All right. So this is your station.
Yep.
And this is what you were talking about before. So you lay out all your pieces. How many pieces do you generally like? Talk me through your work process. Like if you have this many pieces to do, what is your process in how you go about it? What's your plan?
I will let everyone know as people begin reaching out to me for pieces. I group everyone together for that same reason I was telling you before. I need to work in batches. Um, it's not the art that you can like work a little bit and then run out and meet a friend for coffee and then come back and work a little. Like once I'm in there for a day. I'm in there all day and I'm
Mm,
just wearing the clothing and I'm doing the thing and I'm not touching anything. And so I try to limit them. So I'll reach out or I'm collecting people as they're reaching out for a thing. And then I'll get everyone to send their stuff in. And then I will group it all together so that I can begin everybody at once. It takes about 6 weeks to 2 months to get through the whole thing. A lot of that is cure time though. So this would probably take, I don't remember if this was 1 day or 2 days. This is a lot. This was my final session from last fall. And I closed down in the winter, like I was saying, because it's too hard to deal with the temperature in where I live over winter to do what I want to do with these. And so I'd collected a bunch, and this is probably twice as much as what I might normally have. And then I go everyone through it. So the first phase would be gluing all the pieces together. So they'd all get spread out and I'd put all the pieces with that glue, which is mixed with the flour that I was talking about, and line everything up. And then I would not touch anything for a week or so. And then I would go through the next phase and I would clean it up and fill in all the different gaps that needed to be filled in. And then once that cured, I would sand everything down. So that's another couple of weeks there. And then once everything's sanded and cured and waiting, then I will take that you can see me holding a brush with gloves on a couple pictures ago. And there's a long oh, you can see the brush there, but that brush, you can't see the tip of it, but it's a really long, skinny, it looks like a tiny little horsetail, but it's long. The bristles are probably an inch and a half long. And that's what gets dipped in the red urushiol, and you dry that along the curve or the lines of the cracks. And it's pretty temperature sensitive. So that's where it becomes really crucial that I have the right environment, whether it's a rainy day or if it's a cold day or if it's a hot day, how that lacquer shifts in time is sort of dependent on the weather. And so I paint that along and I let that sit for anywhere between an hour to 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. And then I brush the gold. Once it's the right tackiness, I will brush the gold across it like you can see on the right. And you can see, yeah, perfect. You can see the resulting piece on the left.
Okay, so this is totally different than I thought it was. I thought, I mean, this is how I imagine it. I imagine that you have like a bottle of gold
Totally.
and you just like you like Elmer's glue and then you just kind of smush it together.
Yep.
Okay, so this is really an incredible process. So the gold adheres to this ouche oil, right?
Crucial. And so it
Ruscio.
Yep, it adheres to the once it's the right tackiness, it's not too wet, but it hasn't cured fully. You can brush the powder over and it will cling to that tackiness, and that's what creates the lines. And then I spend often, again, it's weather dependent, but for the next 48 hours, I'll go into the studio every a couple times a day and rebrush it to make things restick. If I go in, if I go in too early, for instance, and I attach the gold too early, it actually gets absorbed into that redness and then it winds up, I have to, the application it becomes much more difficult, but I'm in there. I have to babysit all the pieces for about a solid 2 days. I don't really go anywhere while I'm
Uh-huh.
popping in every couple of hours to like touch up the gold and then go off and do a thing. And then a couple hours later, come back and touch up, make sure it's all settled in the right consistency.
This is so such an interesting piece too, because it's like now you're looking at this scene either through a window or they're now in a zoo or something, you know. They were free and now they're caged up.
It's so sweet, but I forgot this piece again. This is just what I was talking about. I forgot this piece had ducks on it. In fact, I didn't even really recognize that it had this many. I don't look at them. I get so lost in the minutia of it. I forget to look at the bigger picture. And it's like, oh, there are actually a lot of little baby ducks on that thing. Like, forgot, didn't know. I almost don't see them, you know?
Yeah, I can see why. This was so interesting. So speak on, I didn't even real, was this originally a table? It was a table originally?
It was originally a table. It was it's a ceramic based table. That picture on the left is how it arrived. It had broken, if I remember correctly, there was this actually came from a design firm. They were working with a client and they were doing a really amazing remodel with a client of theirs. And they purchased this table, and in the purchasing of the table, because ceramics, especially, this is a really thin ceramic for what the weight that it's holding. Um, and so if they don't aren't packaged properly, it shattered. So then when they sent it to me to be repaired, it shattered by like a factor of 10. I was like, oh my gosh. Not pictured here. There's like I have a whole dust of like a whole envelope of dust that was like just
Yeah.
sort of fell apart, you know. I was like, oh my God. Um, so it did get put back together and then reattached to the table and flipped over. But I think it broke prior to ever being established in the client's home.
Okay. I mean, do you
Oh, it
ever
looks
open one?
fantastic. The designer sent me this photo on the right, actually, to be like, it looks great. And I agree. It's
Yeah.
really wonderful. I guess this is their reading room or like a sun library kind of room.
Do you feel intrigued and curious and excited all the time when you open up a package, or do sometimes you open it up and you're like, oh God?
I'm usually excited unless every once in a while, there's some key bit of information that I receive once I open the package that I really wish I had received before. But they didn't know
Yeah.
tell me that, or they didn't know that that might be a thing, you know, that
Right.
might be a problem, or missing that big chunk was actually going to be uh,
Right.
so those things, once I always do like a test drive to put things back together, be like, do I have everything? How does this look? What is the shape of this object? Because sometimes I don't have any idea what the shape is supposed to be. So it's sort of tricky trying to rebuild a thing when you're like, is this like a vase? Like what
Right.
shape?
Is it a platter? Is it an
Like,
egg?
is it
What is
wide? Is it
this?
narrow? And so I will mock build the thing to make sure I have everything. So every once in a while I open something, and once I go through that process, I'm like, oh, bummer. Or
Yeah.
I understand the construction of the thing because I get to see inside, I get to see the guts of it. It's amazing to see how ceramics are made sometimes, just as a ceramic artist, like across the spectrum, but I'm like, oh, wow, now I understand. But there are a lot of photos that are exchanged beforehand, and I try to ask questions that will not have that happen. The situation with this is that they also did not recognize how hard it would be to send a ceramic table. Um,
Yeah.
so when I send
Wow.
it back to them, there is a way if any of your viewers want to know how to send a really big piece of pottery, because that's often how things break is in shipping, because they don't get packaged properly. If you have a particularly precious piece that's wide, gravity will do what it needs to do. If you have a platter, they are notorious for breaking in the mail just because of the surface level and gravity, right? So
Yeah.
they're just versus a tall vase is going to be a lot less likely to break because gravity is working in its favor because everything's
Right.
close to the center of
Right.
gravity. But in a big platter, everything's so far away from the center of gravity that it only takes a little like crink for the whole thing to shake.
Right.
Um,
Right.
if you want to ship a large piece that is fragile, you can put it in this is Kintsugi pro tip. You can put the thing in a box packed with packing peanuts and then pack your box inside another box that is also packed with packing peanuts.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah,
makes sense. All
it's
right. Good to
really
know.
expensive shipping, but it's safe.
Okay. This is one thing that I found really interesting. Are these your pieces?
Those are pieces that I made. Those are a commission for a hotel in Santa Fe.
Okay, so it's interesting to me that you do this process of creating ceramics, breaking ceramics, and repairing ceramics, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so what is that like?
I find it to be pretty easy, actually. I
Yeah,
it's cathartic in a way, and they all break differently, but I did when I have been members of a studio before and like a community studio, and it's kind of funny because we'll have a group firing or whatever, and I'll just toss all my things into a box. I'm not precious about it at all. And I toss all my things to a box to carry home, and people kind of laugh at me because they're like, you don't care if they break or not. I'm like, they're gonna break anyway. So
yeah, and so when you're breaking a piece, before we get into this, when you're breaking a piece, do you try to break it in a specific pattern or is it just random?
these ones that we're looking at now, I did try to have so you don't get to choose how, again, we never get to choose how we break. But um these, I built a series of large vases. I don't remember if there were five or six, but to me, pottery is the parts of pottery are named after body parts. So there's the head, there's the shoulders, there's the belly, there's the feet. They are very human to me. And so these, because they were larger pieces that I was working on at this studio outside of Santa Fe, I was very particular about trying to break them in a specific way.
So when you do pieces, have you ever done pieces? I don't remember what it's called, not greenware, but what is it called when you do like the first firing before you
Yeah,
like do okay.
that's
So
this. It's a bisque fire. So the
a
greenware is
bisque fire.
still, this would be greenware because this is not fired, but it is sanded. I'm sanding dried clay. And so that this is greenware, and then it goes through that first firing, and then it becomes bisque. It's a bisque firing.
So have you ever done a piece where you kind of keep it unglazed and done the gold after like broken it like raw with gold?
No, and the reason for that is that a lot of Native American pottery, for instance, is unglazed, and I can't do it on that because the glaze glaze is actually glass. The word means glass, and when you're dipping a piece of pottery into this substance that you're firing it, you're coating it in glass. So when we see a red plate or a white cup or whatever, that's a glass coating. And that glass coating prevents in my process, it prevents that the urushiol dries black and it leaches into the pottery. So if it's really porous because it doesn't have that glass coating on the outside, it leaches out into the rest of the, not into the rest of the pot, but you can see it. There's no amount of sanding that will get it off of there. So
Okay.
I can't work on unglazed pieces for that reason.
Okay. Okay. I hear you. These pieces are so cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. You can see that it's body. I feel it. I love
Yeah.
it. So is this one of those big pieces?
No, this is actually much smaller. It's probably 6 or 8 inches a vase that I threw. That was a thrown vase. The other ones are more sculptural. I went into this sculptural phase because I was tired of being on the wheel. So
Yeah.
just cutting slabs and putting um, building sort of asymmetric pieces with rolled out slabs of clay.
Yeah.
They get those shapes.
Beautiful. Oh, this one on the left. I mean, they're all great, but this one on the left is so cool. It's like looking at it's like a bust with beautiful jewelry.
That's the same one in that wet clay video, or that one.
This
No,
one?
that one. That's that piece.
Oh, okay. Wow.
One that you're just back one photo, or no, maybe it's forward one photo. That one, that piece
Oh,
is
right. Is this piece.
that piece on the left. Yep.
Yeah. And this
That
feels
one
like a
reminds me of a
person.
heart. The shape of it, if you were to spin it around, it's tri-shaped. It's not a quad. It's triangular in its orientation. It's got three irregular spines that run down across the shoulders. And there's something about it that always reminded me of a human heart.
I can see that. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I want to keep going through. I love these so much. So you can just do the process on top of pieces that have not been broken.
I do the tableware I call Kintsugi inspired. And so there is what's called a gold overglaze you can fire. You can send it through a third firing, and it does have real gold in it. So for instance, that the mugs in the previous one, which are the Kintsugi inspired, so they're not broken all the way through. That's actually carved into the wet clay, and then it's fired, and then I highlight it with the gold overglaze. But that way you can drink out of it. These While traditional kintsugi, if you use 22 karat gold, it does make something food safe. It's tricky though, in that if your piece was really shattered, the likelihood of it leaking is actually pretty high. And I think when people modern day, when they hear that it's food safe, they're like, oh, this is my favorite mug. I want to use it again. And unfortunately, I don't recommend it because when the art was created 600 or 700 years ago, food safe to them meant something completely different than food safe.
Right.
Like
Right.
we're not
Right.
like
Like you're only living until
not
30
driving to work with the
anyways.
cup in the car and throwing it in the dishwasher and that kind of thing. So it is food safe in that it's not 22 karat gold. You can eat 22 karat gold and um not get sick. That's why we have fillings that are made out of gold because
Yeah.
it passes through our body entirely. But it's hard to take care of those pots. And so I do make pots, tableware that most often has some kind of gold on there as a decorative element, or that kintsugi, which was a design element.
These are so cool.
These are a fundraiser I did in
Yeah.
2019.
And I love the shapes of the mugs.
Mhm.
They're really wonderful. Um, okay. So I really wanted to end on this because I always like to end with this. You know what? This is a good ending, and I'll just leave it at that. Just sure we've got all of this beautiful artwork in the process and my associations and your associations, but let's just remember this at the end.
Yeah, no gold here. He's got plenty of gold. I don't need to embellish these with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Robin, this has been so incredible speaking with you. I've learned so much and I'm so This is something that I feel like I could do my own entire creative project just on not doing this, but being in relationship with these pieces.
Oh, neat.
I feel super inspired.
I would really like to do I don't know how to, I haven't formed it in my head. It'd be really great to do a workshop that is around that people can do remotely with a piece of theirs, not with traditional materials, because that would be too much to give to people, or to ask people to use, really, because it's so toxic. But some type of like some type of a healing ritual, or some type of a healing, not a healing ritual, but like a an invitation for people to use the process to heal something of their own. So
Yeah,
like a,
like an alchemical
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Um, so before we sign off, I want to make sure that, and I will put it in the show notes, but I want to make sure that people know where they can find you. Do you do commissions? If somebody wants to do, like if I wanted to have something for Christmas right now, when would I have to have it to you? You know, any information that you feel is relevant, now is your time to speak it. Your Instagram, all that stuff.
great. The Instagram and the website are purokintsugi.com. That's Puro. And Kintsugi is Kintsugi.
Do you want to say what that word means?
Yeah, it's a Japanese word. Kin means gold, and tsugi is joinery. So in Japanese, it actually translates to golden joinery, which I think is a really
Okay.
way to um, put things together. So
Yeah.
it's Puro. So, but it's also pure kintsugi because it's traditional. There are a lot of ways you can do like a faux kintsugi, if you want to just do the process without all the traditional materials. Um, anyway, so it's purokintsugi.com. Instagram is Pro Kintsugi. And if we're in the middle of summer now, and I will be closing down custom repairs usually around October. And then, so if there's anything that wants to happen by Christmas, I've got to have it by then. So if people have that, they want to reach out, there is a form on my website where they can fill in for. I can't, at this point, I can't make anything and break it custom. I will be loading up a bunch of new vases over the next couple of months that people can purchase, but I can't make a thing for someone and then go through the whole process. But people,
Right.
they want broken, that they wanted to reach out about having that repaired, then I'm always happy for that conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so
Thank
excited that you were the
you.
first episode of this second season. And yeah, so everybody, I'm going to put in the show notes all of Robin's information so you can get in touch with her. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.